Oral questions. Question orale. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Today, we found out that there are about 100 police investigations ongoing, investigations into foreign interference. One of these deals with Beijing's targeted intimidation of a member of this House. We have also found out that the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister had been aware of that intimidation for a long time. This is a conflict of interest. Will the Prime Minister launch a genuine public independent inquiry? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Make sure to drop a like on the video if you haven't yet.
Ask the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs to work with all the parties, to work with experts in order to develop a plan so that we can move forward and continue the good work which was done by Mr. Johnston. We now need to move to the next step. We are here, will continue to be here to work collaboratively with all those who want to take this issue seriously, who want to work seriously, set partisanship aside, set toxicity aside, and to work constructively to truly...
So call a public inquiry.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Now agree that deficits are causing inflation. These include Liberal experts. The former Liberal Premier of Nova Scotia, Stephen McNeil, said deficits are causing inflation. The former Liberal Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, John Manley, says that this Prime Minister's deficits are like putting his foot on the inflationary gas pedal. Even the Deputy Prime Minister at present has said that inflation is caused by deficits. So will the Prime Minister finally table a plan to balance the budget so we can bring down inflation and interest rates?
Someone brought their kid in the house. I can hear a kid for some reason.
Mr. Speaker, we know how much the Leader of the Opposition has asked us to trust independent experts and not Liberals on various issues of importance. We disagree. We think Liberals have important things to say. But if he's looking for a strong independent voice, look no further than the Governor of the Bank of Canada, who recently confirmed that government spending is not, quote, contributing to the slowing of the economy, nor is it, quote, standing in the way of getting inflation back to target. We continue to invest in supporting Canadians in targeted ways, while Conservatives continue to talk about cuts to programs and services.
Here, here. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if he doesn't trust Liberals on the economy, why should anybody else? That's right. It was, in fact, his own finance minister, who just weeks before she introduced her budget, said that deficits are like pouring gas on the inflationary fire. Then weeks later, she introduced $60 billion, or $4,200 per family, of brand new gas on that fire. Mr. Speaker, our children are screaming because of the debt that's in this government.
There's a kid in the balcony, I guess.
Responsibly introduce a plan to balance the budget to bring down inflation and interest rates.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Good job, Pierre.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister said that, and then she brought in a responsible, fiscally sound budget. Continues to contribute, and I know they don't like it because it gets in the way of a good political argument, but if you look at the Mr. Speaker, we have the lowest deficit in the G7, the best debt to GDP ratio, and we preserved our AAA credit rating while being there to support Canadians who needed it in targeted, non-inflationary ways. While the Conservatives continue to propose cuts in programs, cuts in help for Canadians, cuts to services, we'll continue
less government
in a way that continues to fight inflation and support Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister's inflationary spending binge caused the price of everything to go up. All that spending and all that money he flooded into the financial system bid up housing prices. They doubled, leading to the most expensive housing prices in the G7. It now takes 25 years for the average family in Toronto to save for a down payment. Used to be able to pay off an entire mortgage in that time period. It takes roughly 90% of a Vancouver family's monthly income to pay the average monthly mortgage. Will the Prime Minister
That is
balance the budget
crazy.
to bring down inflation and interest rates so that Canadians don't lose their homes?
The Right Honourable Prime
Reminder to drop a like on the video if you haven't yet, guys.
If the Leader of the Opposition was serious about housing, he would have supported our housing investments. Instead, he's focused on cutting services, picking fights with municipalities, and protecting wealthy landlords. On this side, our plan includes collaborating with municipalities, including investing $4 billion to fast-track new housing approvals to create 100,000 new homes.
That's less money than they've sent to Ukraine.
To housing, helping Canadians save up for their first home, providing support for low-income renters, and converting surplus federal lands to affordable housing.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mais il a eu 8 ans.
But he had 8 years to make those promises a reality. All he accomplished was double average rents, double average mortgage payments, and double down payments to buy the average house. We have 2 of the world's 10 most expensive cities, Toronto and Vancouver, and now it takes 25 years just to save enough money for a down payment. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister finally stop his inflationary deficits to bring down interest rates and enable Canadians to keep their homes? The Right Honourable
That
Prime
would be
Minister.
nice.
Mr. Speaker, over the past years, we have helped Canadians save for their first homes, especially
How's that working out?
the first home buyers' property incentives and the tax-free savings account for first property. We are also helping repair more housing units by helping municipalities accelerate the construction of 100,000 new houses. We are ensuring that housing is used for housing by ending unfair practices which drive up prices. Especially, we are cracking down on foreign buying of houses and hasty resales of properties just bought. And that's not everything, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the special reporter's resignation, he was named by the Prime Minister, but this resignation could be a milestone, a real turning point in launching a public, independent commission of inquiry. The Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs showed some signs of openness, which I welcome, but I'm also cautious about it. So here's my question for the Prime Minister. Does he agree with me that the necessary condition in order to end up with a positive result to the situation would be to call a public, independent commission of inquiry?
Yes, please. Canadians really deserve it.
Prime Minister, I thank the leader of the Bloc Québécois for having submitted very interesting prospective candidates. We are very open to looking at those candidates as possibilities and open to working collaboratively, cooperatively on a process that will have the trust and confidence of this House and of Canadians. The issue of foreign interference
That should be public information. We should have access to who those candidates are.
to be engaging in personal attacks. We will be objective and hardworking. We will take this seriously. We will carry on with the work that's already underway, and we will restore the trust of Canadians in our electoral system and in our democracy. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, I have to come back to this. We need to agree on a basic principle, the principle of a commission of inquiry and appointing the leader of that commission of inquiry. And the leader must be independent from the government, totally independent, in order to be able to do his or her work. And if we agree on that basic principle, then and only then can we move forward to select a candidate. And if the Prime Minister would like to discuss candidates with me, I can be reached at any time for this. But we need to solve this clearly, officially, before the end of the session. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we do agree on the fact that we need to move forward quickly and in the right way. I'm very open to having discussions with opposition parties. Unfortunately, though, over the course of the past few months, there's been a high degree of toxicity, partisanship, and personal...
By the Liberal cabinet.
It's been very unfortunate. I'm happy to hear that people are now open to working seriously on on interference. And we are happy to carry on ongoing work in order to protect our democracy, our institutions, and our electoral system. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Sell out sing, here we
I
go.
remember when I was in university and my brother had to live with me. I had to work 3 jobs. It was a hard time, but it's even harder for students these days. They have to share apartments with many other students. They're in too small, too expensive, and unhygienic apartments. This is a matter of dignity. When will the Prime Minister stop wasting time and take action to bring down rent costs for students? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have been investing in housing for many years now through various programs to help students and low-income families. We've also been working on programs to encourage more home building and housing building. We are here for students. We're here to help them immediately right now, but we also want to help them for the future so that they can contribute to society in the future. That is why we eliminated interest on student loans federally in the last budget. We are here with more supports for students.
Gotta love the taxpayers
always looking into
paying for student loans.
For Burnaby South.
I want the Prime Minister to imagine what it's like for students trying to find a place to rent in this country right now. Take, for example, a student in Windsor. The CBC reports that a 24-year-old student living in an apartment in Windsor with his sister is on the verge of homelessness because the cost of rent has gone up by so much. Sadly, this is the story of so many students who cannot find a place to rent that's in their budget. The reality is this government's been a failure when it comes to housing. So when will this government take this issue seriously and take concrete steps to bring down the cost of rent for students?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we took this issue seriously back in 2017 when we put forward a $40 billion national housing strategy that Conservatives opposed, even though they hadn't engaged in housing.
That's about as much money as Canada wants to send to Ukraine.
$70 billion in that national housing strategy. And more recently, we've put $4 billion on the table directly to invest with municipalities instead of fighting them with them like the Conservatives wanted to do, to work with them, to accelerate investments, to accelerate zoning processes, to accelerate permitting, to build more supply of housing, to take the pressure off so many Canadians around the housing market.
Thanks for watching the video to the very end. If you'd like to subscribe, I've made it very easy. You can do so by clicking right there. If you'd like to watch another House of Commons highlight clip, you can do so by clicking right there. And if you'd like to subscribe to my main channel, Mistersunshinebaby, where it's all Canadian political news, then you can do so by tapping up there. Subscribing is absolutely free. There's a button down below that says subscribe. If you'd like to join and become a member and financially contribute, you could do so as well. Thank you so much for watching this video.